Yeah.
Okay.
Ashley, what has been one of the most challenging things that you've experienced or are currently experiencing?
Um, I would have to say the most challenging thing that I've experienced in my life was the loss of my little brother when I was around 11 years old. And yeah, it affected almost, and I like to say it watermarks everything that has happened to me ever since.
Tell me about that experience.
So my brother was born in 2000, and I was, I guess, 10, going on 11 at the time. And I was an only child pretty much up until that point. And he was my stepbrother. Um, and so it was interesting going from being an only child to having a brother, but I was excited about it. Because I always, I guess my mother always tells me that I always asked for a sibling, like a friend, because I was always by myself. So I was really very excited about it. And when he was 4 months old, he was diagnosed with leukemia. And when he was a year and a half old, he passed away. So in that time, though it was a short time, he made a huge impact not only on like our family, but the people in the community around us. I remember, I remember we would do the walks, like light the night walks that they do over by Lighthouse Point, and everyone would, raise money, and we made T-shirts and a banner and everything. um, and at the time he was still alive. I think we did like maybe two before he passed away. Like one when first when we found out, I think, and then one right before he passed away. And I just always remember like being like my mom's second hand man in almost all situations after his diagnosis. I became like a second mom, and it was very interesting going from having no siblings and being like, typical only child to being thrown into the position of parental and something, whatever. Um, yeah, it was definitely challenging, but I don't remember much of it. I only remember what people tell me about it. So with things like the night walk, I would be sitting at the table with my mom and organizing and like writing down people's information and like managing paperwork and things like that. I was like 11 years old, and it's just very weird to look back at. I have a lot of home movies. I have like about 8 hours of like archival footage, I would like to call it, because as soon as they found out that he was sick, the camera didn't stop rolling. My stepdad at the time, Michael, was very adamant about like making sure everything was documented, and I think that in and of itself, like the camera always being on, really affected me in what I chose to do with my life, which was be a documentarian, and that being one of my this whole ordeal being like one of my first films. So I think that has helped watermark, my life in a way, and also like has helped me to grow as a person, but also holds me back from time to time.
Why do you think that you don't recall some of the memories of being present and maybe feeling some of the emotions of that time in your life?
I think it's because it was obviously so traumatic, that I don't remember much before it and much during it. I just remember very specific things. Like for instance, like the day that he died. Um, I remember being at school. I was in middle school at the time, and my stepdad came to pick me up, and he didn't even have to really say anything. He just was in there. He was just there, and no one. Trust me. Like September 11th happened. My mother didn't like. I called her and I was like, "Should I come home? Like, should you come pick me up from school?" She's like, "You're fine. Like, you're okay." So I always know, like, I always knew that if someone was coming to pick me up from school, it wasn't gonna be the happiest of things, the happiest of reasons. So he came and he got me, and I remember the moment of just like driving in the car home, like going into the house, and my whole family was there, and they hadn't called the ambulance yet, and so my mom was sitting there with him, and it was just very super traumatic. It's very strange. It's like a different. It's like it is a movie. It is like very movie like in a way. And everything's so memorable. Like moments like that are just, you remember everything. Everything looked like, sounds, smells, colors. It was very weird. And another thing, like I'll never ever forget, is that when my aunt came in, my mom's sister, she came into the door, and like at that time, like most of our family was all there, and I think that we were like all literally sitting there in silence. I remember my mom sitting in a corner, like in this, like we had in our living room. She's sitting in this corner. There's a window, so like this light is pouring in on her, holding it was like very Madonna of the chair. And she had an ottoman, so her feet were up, and I was like on the floor, like on the ottoman. You know what I mean? It could have been painted in like my memory at least, and like surrounded by family. And I'm pretty sure we were all silent. It was very, very weird. And then when my aunt came in, like she let out this like yelp, this like terrible scream that like I'd never heard from a human being before, and it was just very, very scary, weird. So yeah, I'll never forget that moment, and it's important, I think, because like that moment, describing the moment as I pretty much described it, not word for word, but similarly, was this like a script I wrote to get into film school, and it ended up being the documentary that I made as my thesis when I left. So it's always been, but it was hard to make. It took 2 years to make, and I'm still working on it. It's still hard for me to like put it out there. Like it's easy for me to share it with people close to me. It's easy for me to like send a link, but when it comes to like marketing it in any way, I feel very weird about that. And when it comes to like writing a synopsis, like, it seems impossible to me. It's like, how can you, in two or three sentences, encompass what had happened? I've asked so many people for help, and it's like everyone's suggestions don't feel right. So it's a weird process. It's like been going on almost for 3-4 years now, and I haven't put it out there, but hopefully gonna get that out soon. But I think it's just all a part of the process, and I'm not trying to rush myself. I'm trying to just be nice to myself and my mom and everyone involved, really.
What sort of impact did it have on your family?
I mean, it's interesting to see how people grieve differently. I think that is like what I've taken most from the whole experience, is how people choose to deal with the struggles and whatever plight you're experiencing at any time in different ways. For my mother, it was at the time, it's crazy, and like I always think about this and it's nuts to me. She lost my brother but was pregnant with my sister at the time. So not only did she have to keep going for herself as like her own human being, but for the one that she had inside of her, and like that's incredible. Like, she's the strongest person I know, and I give her a lot of shit sometimes, for sure, and we get in fights and we disagree, but like at the end of the day, she's like incredible. Can't imagine doing that, and for her it was really hard, but she really pushed through it. She's the one person in my life that no matter what, like to a fault, is just like keep going like 90 miles an hour in the direction of the right thing, and sometimes that gets frustrating because I don't want to get out of bed some days, but you have to keep going. And so she's definitely been a real inspiration, and she dealt with it that very specific way of just continue to go, like life is worth living, like there's so many beautiful things, especially the thing that I'm working on right now, that must have been her mentality, I'm sure. And so she kept going. On the contrary, my stepfather really went into a bad place that I don't think that he's out of, and that was almost like more than 10 years ago that it happened. I'm not sure if he would much appreciate me speaking about him in this way, because I know that it's really hard for him, and I'm sure that he's recognized like how he is now. But I will say that he went from being like an excited like father to watching those tapes, those 8 hours of VHS tapes over and over and over after Mike died. And watching like old westerns, because when he was sick and had to stay home with the baby, they would watch old westerns on TV and eat Fritos together. And that became what he did. And he's even said, and it's a part of the film that I made, that he's even said that he stayed there on the couch, and he stopped sleeping in the bed with my mom. Like, he stayed there on that couch for 5 years, and he stayed there because he thought, like, he's not dead, he's just gone right now, he's coming back. And that's incredible to me. Like, it's incredible, not only because it's incredibly sad, but it's incredible because his brain said that to him. His brain said, this is right. This is what you should do. That's really terrible. That's really sad. So yeah, so like I said, I think that the thing that I get out of this the most, and when I talk about it, is that people deal with things differently. Like, you can't expect everyone, like, and sometimes I get frustrated. Like, if I'm talking to a friend, or if someone's going through something hard, I don't have trouble empathizing, because of this, I have no problem empathizing almost to a fault with people. But because I've seen someone like my mother push through a loss of a child to go on to do like good things with her life, that it's hard for me to not want to shake someone, be like, no, get off the couch, please help yourself. Because when it comes down to it, you can't really save anyone, you can only help, but they have to be willing to help themselves first.
How did you process the grief yourself?
That's interesting. People always ask me this, and I don't know. I think that I just followed suit with my mom and sort of mimicked her. In a way, I think that the movie, making the film, is therapeutic for me, cathartic for me, in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways I feel as though I haven't. Like, for instance, like, hold on. Give me a sec. Okay. Just gonna blow my nose. It's gonna be very loud, I apologize. Yeah, figured I'd give you a heads up on that. Still looking okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, I feel like I said, the movie was really cathartic for me. It was a way to, making the film was a way to look at it from the side of my mother, the side of my stepfather, and in making the film, having my own voice about my opinions about it. But it was subtle, and a lot of people that watched it said, like, we need more of you, like, we want to see more of you, because only about halfway through the film do you realize that the filmmaker is actually the daughter. Oh, she was there and involved me. So so I think that, like, I found that really interesting. I thought that the audience would be so interested in that and, like, intrigued, but not so intrigued that I would need to add to the film more of my experience. So what ended up happening was that I added a little bit more, but not enough in a lot of people's opinions, but I'm not going to go back and change it. I believe strongly that, like, my voice, you if you pay enough attention, if you watch it, that you know how I feel about it. And like I said, I'm not sure that I've totally worked through it. I'm still terrified to have kids, because I don't know if I could do what my mom did. I'm not sure if that ever happened to me, that I could be okay. And I don't want to. It's really frightening. is frightening, really, like in life, you know, for one reason or another. So it's, and everyone, you know, you'll hear anyone say, like, any motivational speaker, that like taking risks and conquering fears is like the most important part of like life and living, and like if you don't, like, you're not, you know, you're not giving yourself enough of a chance, right? So that always pushes me like to like work through it eventually. I mean, I'm in therapy and have been for a while, not just because of this. Like it's something that like I said, it did happen a while ago, so it's there, but it's there, but like very subtly there. So it's not something that I cry like this about every day, and that I feel very lucky for, and so that's, I feel like, a good thing. But it's definitely something that, like, down the road in like 5 or maybe 10 years, when I think about a family, that it's gonna really punch me in the face, I feel like. But I feel like I know it's coming, so maybe it won't be that bad of a hit. Yeah. So.
What are some of the ways that you are able to move through points where you find yourself not wanting to get out of bed, or stuck in that frame of mind where it's hard to get off the couch, or to get motivated, or to keep going when you don't want to?
It's funny. I feel like I force myself a lot of the time, which sometimes can be unhealthy and not the nicest thing to do to myself. Like, no, like you're like shameful if you don't get out of bed, or you're bad if you don't get out of bed, or something's wrong with you, you know. And that's not the healthiest thing, but sometimes that gets me out of bed, and I put music on that like I can sing to, and that gives me like I remember that like I'm good at that, like you know, like that makes me happy, that gives me energy. I think being around people is really important. I love being around people, and I love like surrounding myself with like good people. Sometimes it's not always possible given like the world we live in sometimes, but I think that surrounding myself with people who really understand me, or at least try to, is really important. Also, like, I love to talk. I love to talk about like you know, things that have happened, things going on in the world today. Like, how do you feel about this? Like, if I can connect with someone, or agree or disagree, or if anything, like that, like gives me a reason. Like, I think connection, when it comes down to it, connection to a song, to a person, to a film or something. Like, ultimately, like, you just like do something. Like, do one thing. You know, take a shower, or go out to the bodega. I live in Brooklyn, so, you know, go down the street to the bodega. Like, remember you need to feed your cat. Remember that you're out of something. Go talk to the cashier. Sometimes just like smiling at someone makes a difference. If you like, even like, you know, giving $1 to someone on the subway who doesn't have $1, or like, you know, there's this deaf woman who like goes around the subway, and she like puts, if you're sitting, she'll put on your knee a little card with the sign language alphabet on it, and on the back it says, like, you know, donate whatever you can, and she'll go around and put them down, and, you know, she'll come back around to take them if you're not going to donate. So, you know, even just giving the $1 and having her say thank you, you know, and like knowing, like, do that too, you know, it's kind of like, cool, you know, you have a connection with someone, they smiled at you, maybe you made their day, you never know.
Have there been any blessings to this experience? Has it impacted your life in any positive ways that you can recognize or acknowledge at this point?
Mm-hmm. Hold on 1 sec. I think that the whole experience impacted me positively, because it sort of, I don't know, it doesn't give me purpose, but it does in a way. It's very strange. Like, it isn't like I said, I don't think about it every day. It's just there. It's just something that has happened to me. And it's like one of many, like the biggest, but one of many like things that I've had to deal with my whole life, you know? And it comes down to just loss, like loss in any way, you know? And with any sort of loss that you have, there is always like a balance of energy. There's like a loss, something comes, you know? And whether it has come or will come, like I have a blessed life, you know? I'm so lucky that I have hands and feet and legs and arms and a brain that works. You can't ask for a lot much more than that, because a lot of people don't have what you have, what I have, what anyone has, you know? And it could be said about, and it might be like very sympathetic and not as empathetic, well, at least you have this, but you know, you have to be grateful for things in order to kickstart any sort of positivity that you want to experience in your life. You have to give gratefulness, thankfulness, and you'll receive like what you might perceive as luck, or like, you know, coincidence, or something good happens to you and you're, oh wow, that's cool. It's like maybe you made that happen yourself and you should be proud of that. And so I think in a lot of ways that's really important, and that's what positive things have come out of such a bad situation. Just the ability to just be happy that you're alive. And I know it's like so cliche, like hearing myself say it, I'm like, okay. You know, like the New Yorker in you is laughing at you right now, but I think it's true. I think that anyone who tries to deny that is ultimately lying to themselves. You need to be a lot more positive in order to exist happily in the world, that's all.
Sounds like loss, grief, trauma, painful events can often bring about a restored or renewed sense of gratitude.
Yeah.
For not only the things that we have in our lives or in our health, but the relationships and the connections that we have.
Yeah. I think connection with people is probably ultimately, when I like boil everything down to it, like extremely important to me, if not the most important thing to me. Being able to connect to someone, understand them, have myself be understood. I know that like just from talking and being in therapy and talking to people about grief and moving on and things like that, I think that the hardest thing for me is to be misunderstood. I hate it, and I hate when I can't level with somebody. It like hurts me, you know? I think that just being able, it's also a two-way street. So sometimes I can be really hard on myself. It's not all my fault that like someone's not understanding where I'm coming from, but that's a challenge like that I go through all the time. But ultimately, communication with people, connection with people is so important and so much fun. Like it gives me such a yeah.
Were you able to? What was your relationship like with your brother while he was alive, aside from sort of being a parental assistant to your mother? Did you have time to establish a bond, and did you have a chance to make peace and sort of say goodbye to him before he left?
I definitely did not have a chance to say goodbye. I think that, unfortunately, probably I'm thinking about it now, as soon as we found out his diagnosis, and not as soon as we found out that he was sick, but most likely when we realized that all of the treatments and stuff weren't going to work, or he wasn't in remission long enough for us to ever get a bone marrow transplant or do something like that. As soon as like we figured like, crap, like we're really not, we're racing the clock and we're losing a little bit. That's when I think like a very slow goodbye just began, and I think it took like months of time. You know, my mom would like it seemed like ritualistic. Like every day it was like the same thing. My mother would wake up at like 4 a.m. and go for a walk and like wake me up, so I would go sleep because he slept in the bed with my parents, and she would wake me up to go for a walk so she could go out and walk and have alone time and just, you know, pray or relax or whatever she would do. and she would wake me up, and I would go in the bed and like sleep next to him. She would come back. She would administer his medication. I would be there because I had to hold it because he's a baby. Like you have to hold his hands back so he's not, because he had a catheter in his chest. You can't let him touch that because it could get infected, or you know, you could pull it all out. You know what I mean? It's a tiny baby. It's insane to me. And it was very, just like I said, ritualistic. Like very, like every day was the same, and I was like an assistant, you know. And I feel like, I'm not sure if this is true because, like I said, I don't remember much before and during, but I feel like I went from being an only child, probably very loud and obnoxious and like, you know, selfish in a lot of ways, because as all little kids are, to being such an observer and so quiet and just like, you have nothing to say about bad about anything right now. You know, you just can help, and that's all that you can do. And sometimes that's like totally the truth with life, but it's also very sad. Like I think about, like when I look back on it, I think about like how in a way, like because my mom was so focused on like everything going on, that I was just not like, I don't know how to say it without it sounding very dramatic and like poor me, but I was just sort of in the shadows observing, and that I was like, because of that, I don't know, like I just feel like I was a mirror to my mom. Like I just tried to be a mirror because I didn't know what else to do. So I don't know, I don't even remember the question.
Is there a significant memory that you have of like
oh, like our relationship together,
a bond with your brother?
Sure.
A special moment?
Yeah, I think that before he was diagnosed, there was a Halloween where where he dressed out, he was a clown, and I was like a cat or something. And I think like that moment and many moments after that were very similar to it. Just I would just talk to him, you know, like he was a person, which I think is like what you should do with babies. Like talk to them, not like you could talk to them, like all people do that, it's a natural thing. But like I really think that you should talk to babies like they're people, like real people, you know. And it was almost like I think like maybe I was just trying to get in as much conversation as possible so that he would know me better. I never really thought about that.
If you had the opportunity to express something to him today, or to say goodbye to him, what would you say?
I don't think I would say goodbye. I don't think that that's like, I don't think that would be worth much, you know, because he's like, he affects my life still. Why would I say goodbye? I don't know if that's healthy or not. I think that I don't need to say goodbye. I could just be thankful for like his presence that I feel sometimes, or just like memories and things like that. My mother like whenever she sees a cardinal like the bird, she always thinks that it's him, because she always seems to, hold on, my nose is just gonna keep pouring. So my mother, whenever something really bad is happening to her, one time she told me she was like driving down the road like really upset about something, whether it was like, I think that whenever she gets upset about one thing that has nothing to do with my brother, that she sort of brings in the unfairness of that, so it compounds and makes everything much more intense. So I feel like she might have been having a day like that, and she was just driving along, and she was like, "Oh, okay." And she always like sees them outside in a tree, and it comforts her. It makes her feel good, you know. And I like, you know, cardinals are birds, but I believe in signs and things like that. So I could see how it comforts her. But if I could, like I don't think of, when I think of him, I don't think of like him as like a baby. I kind of like think about like when I do take like time, like that isn't just a moment to think about my brother. I think about like what I would say to him today as like what age he was today. Like, so he would have been 15 in October. Sorry, in April. October was the month that he died. I get those confused sometimes. But he would have been 15, and I would have been showing him all the cool music that I used to listen to when I was 15, and like telling him about girls and like what to do and what not to do and all of that, and that makes me happy, you know, because like I have siblings to interact with still and to tell all these things to still, and I do, you know, and I make sure that like the time that I do get to spend with them at my parents' house or anything is like time well spent. And like at least I could, if I could do one thing with them or for them or talk to them about one thing, like even for 5 minutes, that makes me happy, because hopefully they'll remember that. You know, hopefully that will mean something to them like later. Or if they see me cry about something, like hopefully they'll remember that and think like, okay, like she's not just like a sister figure or like a parent figure that I've had my whole life that I don't really know much about. Like she's a human person. And so I don't know if it's the healthiest thing to imagine my brother as like a real human person. But I don't think it's like terribly bad. I'm not like super crazy fucked up person right now. So I don't think I'm doing that much wrong in imagining that. You know.
You mentioned your mother sort of connecting with the cardinal and representing his spirit and his energy. How do you acknowledge his presence in your life? Is there anything that is symbolic for you?
I don't think so. I think that I piggyback on the cardinal idea because it makes my mother really happy. I definitely do believe in signs, that if something, it could really be anything. There's not really one thing. But it's not, I don't always attribute it to him, because sometimes, like, there will be times where, like, I'm going through a hard time or anything. I'm not asking for his help or his guidance. Like, that would definitely be like a universe question or a God question or a God figure question. Sorry. Sorry, where'd that go? Oh, it's still spinning. See? Stuff like that. Hopefully I don't move the chair or anything. So yeah, I don't know, any little thing can be a sign, but it's never like I'm asking for comfort or for help or answers to questions, because like truthfully, if he were here right now, he'd be younger than me, so how could he answer questions? It's not like because he died he's omnipotent, you know? So it's more of a like, I think I just like think about him and the situation, remember that where I came from and how that affected me, and sort of I'm just thankful for the thing where I've gotten myself because of the situation. So, yeah.
Do you think it's possible that even his short lifespan was meant for a reason, and that it impacted
Totally.
A lot of positive change and brought about many blessings and gifts in all of your lives and the lives of those that you touched, and has hopefully created ripples from just that one short life.
Yeah, definitely. I think that his very short life, and I want to mention, like, there are definitely people that I've met that would like to think, well, he was only around for such a short time, you know, he wasn't even able to talk or walk, you know, what do you mean, like, you miss him so much? Like, how did you have such a connection with a being that couldn't communicate with you? And, like, it just goes to show, like, well, you just weren't there, and it's okay that you think that, but you're wrong. You're so enormously wrong. You know, it's you spend 3 I mean, look at it this way. People meet, like, their person, right? Their partner. And within 2 weeks, maybe within a moment, you know how important that person is going to be to you for the rest of your life. Whether or not you've known them for, you know, for your whole life as a friend, or you just met them, okay? It doesn't take very long, like, emotionally and physically sometimes, to realize, like, wow, like, you have made a difference in my life almost immediately. And I don't even know you, and you don't even speak my language or any language at all, maybe. Maybe we don't have any, you know, typical ways of communicating, but it doesn't mean that you haven't made an impact on my life. So I think that I hate when people say that, and it makes me angry because it just shows that like they have, you know, they have trouble empathizing, they have trouble, you know, seeing where I'm coming from. And again, it goes back to being misunderstood, and it irks me. But I think that his short life was so impactful, not just to me and my family in good ways and bad, but also to the community that rallied around us. You know, as soon as people found out that he was sick, what could we do? People sent food, sent letters, and I remember his name is Jordan Mann. We went to middle school and high school together. He rode his bike from his house with a card that he wrote, like, you know, colored with crayon, I think, and brought it to me, you know, and was like, I'm really sorry. You know what I mean? Like, stuff like that. Like, I think, like I said, I think human connection is probably the most important thing in the world. And if we're all thinking that way, then that's what this experience gave me and my family the opportunity to do, is to really connect with people and to let people in and to let them help and to let them, like, you know, put a hand on our shoulder and not be so, like, you know, dismissive because you don't know, this didn't happen to you, how could you empathize? Well, you can empathize in any way. You can take any experience that you've had in your life and attribute it or relate it to what someone else is going through. I think that was the best thing that happened to our family. And unfortunately, my mother and my stepfather Michael at the time aren't together anymore, and I think that a huge part of it was this loss that sort of degraded and deteriorated the marriage, just based on how both of them dealt with it so differently, as I mentioned. And it's amazing to see. We spent Christmas with him and his family, like, this year. You know, we're still all very close. The marriage didn't work out, but that doesn't mean we all don't love each other very much. I called Michael on his birthday last month. You know, everyone, just because it didn't work out doesn't mean you, like, abandon people. You know, you don't, like, because we went through it all together. Like, how could you do that? You can't leave people alone like that. It's important to reach out. Like, and I'm so thankful that people reached out to us, and I'm thankful that I have the ability still and the want to reach out to others too. And I'm not closed off because of this experience.
Sounds like it's opened you.
Yeah. It's not the only thing that's opened me. I've had, like, some incredibly lovely people in my life that I'm so thankful for, who have helped me to stay opened up and happy, and are there, like, the drop of a hat if I need them. My best friend Ilana, she is, like, the best. Sometimes I'll be in the worst place and, like, so upset, and I'll call her, and before I say anything, she was like, I already feel you're upset. Like, I knew you were upset. I could feel it already. Like, what's wrong? You know, that's happened a couple times. And I'm so thankful for people that have connected with me and have, like, sort of latched on to my energy, and that we go together even if we're miles apart. Like, in life, we, like, go through together with our energy. And so it's like, if I am experiencing something, all I have to do is pick up the phone or communicate or just think about them, and they're there for me. I think that's awesome.
What advice would you offer to someone else who can relate to your experiences?
Thanks. That's a loaded question. Because, I'll stop wiping my face and then answer. Hold on. Because I really want to get this out before I forget it. That's why. Because I had such a, I was kind of alone. Because I was kind of alone in dealing with what happened, how I dealt with it. I never really had advice, except for my mother's example of just keep pushing 90 miles an hour in what you think is the right direction. Or or the best direction for you. I don't know what to say. It's ultimately a journey that you have to go on and figure out for yourself and dig deep, like very deeply into yourself. And at times it's extremely uncomfortable and something you don't want to do. And is a part of the reason why you don't want to get out of bed. It's because like, oh, well, to get out of bed would mean I would have to dig deep into myself and figure out what the problem is and try and solve it. If you're anything like me, you're just trying to get things done in order. So solve the problem, get out of bed, whatever. So ultimately, my way of problem solving and working through my issues is very tailored. And the only real advice that I can give is like, don't shut yourself off from yourself. Like, don't close that door to yourself and all the bad stuff, because ultimately the bad stuff will only like make you stronger. And again, that's like so cliche to say, like bad is only going to make you a better, stronger person. But it's like, it wouldn't be a cliche if it wasn't true. Nothing in life is a cliche if there's not some truth to it, right? So you just have to, the advice I would say is don't close yourself off to those around you. Don't blame anybody for the bad things that have happened to you, whether it is someone's like actual fault, someone has wronged you or hurt you in a way. No one can make you feel anything. You make yourself feel a certain way based on other people's actions or your actions that you can't control. No one is going to make you feel bad. You have the option and the choice to feel however you would like to feel about any given situation. So my advice being, like, regain control, realize that you have control, and get out of bed and do the things that make you happy. Be nice to yourself. Go to the coffee shop and get yourself your favorite drink. Drink it on the porch and smoke a cigarette, which is what I do. It's not good for you, I know. But just do things that you want to do, regardless of what other people think. And make the choice for yourself to do right by yourself. One of the questions you asked me earlier was, like, what's like a mantra or a motto or like a song line or something that helps you work through or to calm down or something like that. I think that something that I repeat to myself all the time is accept that all is well. Like, accept that all is well. It's okay. You're gonna be okay. This is really hard. It seems like unfathomable how hard it is to solve this problem or to get through what you're going through, but you will do it because you have to. Because if you think about it this way, the universe like wants to exist, right? If we are all part of the universe and, you know, one being, which is what I like to believe, and energy and everything like that. Ultimately, we all want to survive and exist and push forward. So why would you work against that? Like, ultimately, it's going to happen. You can't fight that. Like, you will continue to exist, so run with it, you know? Just work with yourself, which is working with the world and the people around you on, you know, a micro level. And then ultimately on a macro level, things will happen that are good for you. But you have to be, oh man, another cliche coming right up. You have to be the change you want to see in people around you, in the energy in the room. You know, if you walk into work one day and if you have a bad attitude because of your commute, someone like me who has a really strong personality, I notice, and I'm not trying to be conceited in any way, but being mindful and aware of your energy and how it affects people is extremely important. But I can notice if I walk into a room and if I'm upset about something, the mood changes. And it's so palpable. It's real. It happens. Like, just be mindful of that. Bring good things to the table, because then if people around you are in a bad mood because of your bad mood, then you're not only like not doing good right by yourself, but you're ruining other people's day too. You know?
So a couple of things that I heard in your advice is don't shut down, don't close yourself off. I think that's an initial reaction that a lot of us have to something that makes us uncomfortable, we shut down, we close off to protect ourselves, to create a barrier. When we do that to shut out the painful stuff, we also
shut out the good.
Shut out the good, yeah, we're not letting that in. The other thing that you mentioned is sort of moving with the force, you know, it's almost like we are part of nature, we're like water, you know, and that we need to keep flowing.
Exactly.
And we try to contain it, things get stifled, they build up, the pressure builds, and something breaks, and something bursts. And
it's not irreparable. It's not like because something bursts and if you have a meltdown, like you can't come back from that, you know.
Absolutely.
I've had plenty of that, and I can, you know, talk all day until I'm blue in the face about like all these great positive things that you could do to make your life better, but when it comes down to it, like there are days when I'm at work and I am so mean, you know, and I could be so mean and nasty, and when I realize it later in the day, and like luckily with being self-aware and thinking about this stuff very often, which I do, my correction time, which is, it's not what I usually call it, but like my interim time in between having this reaction that is negative and realizing that I have this reaction that is negative and trying to correct that is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So I think that that's important. I like to pat myself on the back for that, because there have been times where something bad happens and for months I'm just upset about the thing and I can't let it go. And like letting go, I think, is like an important part of existing in the world. Like don't go tit for tat with everything. Like relax. If something is, if you think that in a year this thing that makes you mad right now isn't going to bother you, then why are you upset about it? Like if in like a year, maybe 6 months or whatever, like this thing isn't going to bother you, then let it go now. Like give yourself a break. You don't need to harp on it, you know? Again, something that I really wish that I could do better. Let things go, but it's hard. It's really hard. It's so hard. Hardest thing in life, letting things go, for sure.
How important do you think it is to have outlets to express?
They're so
yourself?
important. Oh wow, yeah. Outlets to like express yourself, whether it's because you're upset or because you're really happy. Anything to express yourself is really important. There's such a release in that. Like I said, like just like when I can't get out of bed, putting on a record, putting on, giving myself like one task to do for the day. Like if you could get out of bed and do your laundry, you are a human. You are a human. You contributed to not only your well-being physically and spatially in the small apartment you have in Brooklyn, but you also emotionally have done something nice for yourself, and okay, that's what you did for the day. Good for me. Little things like that are very, very important. But what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something about letting go. I forgot. I wanna say one more thing though. Sure. About when I'm really in a really dark place and feeling really like mad at myself that I've done something wrong or I've hurt a person, and feeling guilty about that, because I often feel very guilty after something bad happens. Like, how did I contribute to what, like, someone else's pain, or how did I contribute to someone else's bad day, or is someone talking about me behind my back about the thing that I did to contribute to their bad day? It's like a spiral. It cycles, and it's really, really terrible. And I'm sure that anyone can relate to that. Like, one bad thing happens and a slew of other bad thoughts come from that may or may not be true, but in most cases isn't true. I like to, and this is another thing that my best friend Alana told me to do one time, and it like totally resonated with me. And this is actually very recently that she said this to me. She said, think about the wisest part of yourself. Like, breathe, relax, think about the wisest part of yourself that the part of you that would give your best friend advice, who wouldn't want anything bad to happen to your best friend, and would give them your most honest and true advice. What is that part of yourself saying about how you feel right now? And if that part of yourself says, it's okay, you didn't do anything wrong, you're being really hard on yourself, it's okay to let that thing go, then do that. Like, listen to what the wisest part of yourself has said to you. And believe that, because ultimately, like, it's the truest part of who you are. And you're not, like I said, in most cases, people aren't trying to sabotage themselves purposefully. Sometimes we self-sabotage on accident and realize it later. But in most cases, people aren't trying to sabotage their own life because our animal instinct is to continue to live. So listen to that very true part of yourself and just listen to it. Trust it. Trust it fully and go in the direction of what that thing is saying. I like to personify this wise person in myself as this old woman with braids. Yeah, so yeah, it helps a lot. And thinking about like, am I to blame for X thing that happened or someone else's upsettedness? Most times you're not, because like I said before, no one can control how you feel about something. You feel a certain way because of how you want to feel about it. So ultimately you have to just be nice to yourself.
Do you have a favorite quote that you'd like to share? I know you mentioned a couple earlier.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have quotes. And the thing about when anyone asks you like, what's your favorite movie or what's your favorite book or what's your like favorite anything, you immediately forget all the things you like and you can only remember like the things that you know would resonate with other people as well as you, because you've connected all these things together. So I don't have like a quote, but I'm sure that like in my life I've read thousands of poems and you know, passages and articles and stuff and been like, yes, you know.
Was there something that someone said to you maybe during the time that you were in a period of grief that resonated with you or really it took value to?
My grandmother, this is silly, it's not even profound, but I'll say it anyway. My grandmother she's very Irish. She used to just say, she had a mug and it had like, you know, shamrocks on it and like Celtic lettering. It said, "Quit your belly aching," as all in one word. And it resonates with me because it's silly. So it not only reminds you that like it's not all that serious, you know what I mean? Like whatever's happening, like if it's a little thing, you know, not all that serious. And to also be like grateful and thankful, like I mentioned before, like stop complaining maybe for a minute, like stop your whining, quit your belly aching, and realize that like you're alive and you have the ability to choose how good or bad your life can be, and that's like totally a gift. And everyone has it. You are innately born with this gift of choice, free will. It's so great. We live in a country that, you know, most times, don't get me started on politics, Sam knows. You have the ability to choose the thing that you want.
How has it felt to talk about and share these experiences and feelings with me today?
It's good. I think it's very good that it's on camera, because there are a couple of times where I was thinking in my head, like, whoa, that's something that you've actually never thought about, or that's a breakthrough and that's why you're crying. Because I don't cry unless, like, I do cry a lot. Let's get that outright. And I think everyone who watches this video is going to be like, wow. But yeah, I cry a lot. But when I go from being like talking like normally to tears immediately, I know that that's like what I just said is something I've never thought about before, and a bit of a breakthrough, and to pay attention to that. Unfortunately, I don't remember exactly what I said or what I thought, but it's good that it's on camera now. So I get a chance to revisit that. But ultimately, it feels good. It's like a nice therapy session. I'm not watching the clock. It's always good. Like I said, I love talking to people. It's good to relate to people about like bad things that you've gone through, and to receive validation is also like important. It's not the most important. You should really always be looking for other people's validation, which is something I struggle with often. But it's so nice to get it when you do. It's so nice to just have someone be listening and ask like the, you know, compassionate questions and be mindful of how something might have affected someone, and to sort of tread lightly in that, you know, I appreciate it. So I thank you.
Thank you. Do you think that it's possible that by sharing your experiences, even painful experiences with other people, that you could potentially be helping someone else to either know that they're not alone, give them some courage to continue to move forward on their journey, or even...
I definitely think that this is helpful. There's a phone going off. Oh, have you asked the question again? Because I forgot what you said.
Do you think that it's possible that by sharing your experiences, as painful as they may have been, that you could potentially inspire someone else or give them some courage or some hope that they're not alone in whatever challenges they're facing?
100%. I definitely think that. I think that was the point in making the film that I made. I wanted, one of my goals with the film was to send it to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and hopefully they could show it for free, like just show people like this experience, and hopefully people would see that it wasn't just this happened, it was very tragic, and now everyone's fine. Like, no, it shows two sides of the story, and even three if you're counting mine, of like one where it was really negative, one really positive, and one not. I don't know if we figured it out yet, or if I figured it out yet. So I think that sharing that was really important to me, is really important to me, because like I know how good it feels on a very simple level. I know how good it feels when someone can relate to me about a loss, especially if someone had the loss around the age that I had the loss. I remember being on like a first date with someone who lost his mother around the same age as me. And like, you're on a first date with a girl, your intention isn't probably to cry and to open up in that way, but we both cried, and we shared this moment, and I still have such a strong relationship and connection to that person, and that's never going to change. And I think that it's really important, and it makes people feel like they're not alone.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Oh, thank you.